In 399 BC, Athens put its greatest mind on trial. Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, was sentenced to death simply for asking too many questions, for unsettling comfortable assumptions and refusing to conform to the crowd's expectations. 500 citizens voted together in unified certainty, and they were all wrong. We like to believe that when enough people agree on something, it must be true, that the crowd carries a kind of wisdom, and that consensus equals correctness. But history keeps proving otherwise. Mobs have burned books they never read. Crowds have cheered for things they later called atrocities. Entire societies have looked back at their own unanimous beliefs and asked, how did we all agree on something so wrong? The majority is not a compass, and the person who refuses to follow it is not broken. Today we're talking about loners, not as something to fix, but as something worth understanding, and maybe something to learn from. Let's be honest about what herd mentality actually does to people. It doesn't make you evil or stupid, but comfortable. And comfort, unchecked, makes you stop thinking. When everyone around you believes something, it takes enormous energy to question it. The social cost is real. You risk ridicule and exclusion. So most people quietly conform, adopting the values handed to them, and wear the mask their environment shaped. Their actions follow not from genuine conviction, but because following is easier than standing apart. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche had a name for this. He called it herd morality, the tendency of people to adopt values not because they've examined them, but because the crowd holds them. He wrote that most human beings never truly choose their own values. They inherit them from family, culture, and from the fear of being different. And in doing so, they become strangers to themselves. But Nietzsche saw this not as a moral failing. He saw it as a kind of sleepwalking. He believed the human animal is deeply social by nature, that our ancestors survived because they conformed to the tribe and followed the herd. The outsider in prehistoric times did not live long, so the fear of standing apart is not weakness, but an ancient wiring. What helped us survive then is now keeping us asleep. And because of that, the crowd does not think or reason. It merely feels, mimics, and repeats. And then it calls its repetition truth. This is why he said that madness in individuals is rare, but in groups, it is the rule, because groups lower the cost of not thinking. You do not need to examine anything when everyone around you is already nodded in agreement. So this is Nietzsche's whole point. Wake up. Question what you've been given. Have the courage to think for yourself, even when it costs you something socially. Because a life lived on borrowed values is not really your life at all. The herd doesn't ask those questions. The loner, by necessity or by nature, often has no choice but to. So who then is this loner? We've been conditioned to see the loner as a warning sign. The quiet kid in the corner, the person who doesn't come to parties, the one who seems unreachable. But strip away the social anxiety we project onto them, and what do you actually see? Someone who hasn't agreed to wear a mask. The loner exists outside the performance. They're not managing an image or calculating what to say to be liked. In stepping off the stage that most of us spend enormous energy performing on, the loner has kept what the crowd quietly trades away, themselves. Think about what social belonging actually requires. You soften your opinions and laugh at things you don't find funny. The right clothes are worn, and other people's energy is mirrored. And over time, what emerges is a slightly edited version of yourself, a version approved by the group. This isn't always bad, as community requires compromise. But when the editing never stops and the mask fuses to the face, you've lost something real. The loner, for better or worse, often refuses that trade, free of superficial standards and of the invisible rule book that tells you how to sit, what to chase, what to call important. There's an honesty in that which is rare. Diogenes of Sinope understood this completely. The ancient Greek philosopher voluntarily lived alone in poverty on the street and rejected the very idea of civilized life. He lived in a barrel and mocked kings to their faces. When Alexander the Great visited him and offered to grant any wish, Diogenes told him to step out of his sunlight. He owned nothing and performed for no one. Diogenes was not a loner because he hated people, but because he saw how much of social life was a theater. In ancient Athens, status mattered enormously. What you wore, who you knew, how you spoke, these things determined your worth in the eyes of others. Diogenes looked at this entire system and called it what it was, a game, and he simply refused to play. He would do in public what others did behind closed doors and say what others only whispered. He was called a dog, and he took it as a compliment, because a dog does not pretend or care about your opinion of it. Diogenes believed that most human suffering came from caring too much about things that did not matter. Status and the approval of people you did not even respect. By walking away from all of it, he discovered something his wealthier neighbors never would: peace that did not depend on anything outside himself. You don't have to live in a barrel. But the principle matters. When you stop trying to impress, something clarifies. Sit with this question for a moment. If you walked your own path, not the one suggested by your social circle or your culture, what would you actually lose? Think carefully. You'd lose approval from people whose approval required you to be someone else. You'd lose the comfort of consensus, that warm feeling of being agreed with, validated, included. But none of that is real. Approval built on performance isn't love. Belonging that demands inauthenticity isn't community. What you truly lose, walking your own path, is nothing. Nothing that was actually yours to begin with. What you keep is harder to name, but you know it when you feel it. A kind of groundedness, a relationship with your own thoughts that isn't mediated by what others might think of them. The ability to sit with yourself and not flinch. Loners often have this, not because isolation is virtuous in itself, but because solitude, when lived honestly, strips away everything that was never really you, and what remains is something solid. Now for something harder. Not every loner chose their path. Imagine a child who grows up unable to connect. Not because they're cold or arrogant, but because something about them, their sensitivity and intensity, the way they see the world, simply doesn't fit the mold around them. They reach out and find nothing. They try to belong and get rejected. They watch others form bonds with an ease that feels completely foreign to them, and they begin to wonder, what is wrong with me? This kind of loneliness is not philosophy, but a wound. There's a particular ache in being surrounded by people and still feeling completely invisible, in wanting connection so badly that the absence of it becomes the loudest thing in the room. These people didn't reject the world. The world, in its carelessness, rejected them first. And here is what's remarkable about many of them. They don't become cruel, but become perceptive. Because they have spent their lives on the outside looking in, they notice things. They notice when someone is being excluded, like the person in the corner at the party who is smiling, but whose eyes are somewhere else entirely. They have felt that specific pain so deeply that they cannot ignore it in others. The wound becomes a kind of radar. People who have been hurt by the indifference of crowds are often the first to offer genuine kindness to a stranger. Not the performed kindness of social obligation, but the real kind that sees you. This is why we should love them instead of pitying them or trying to fix them. Because the person who has known that loneliness and still chose softness over bitterness is carrying something quietly extraordinary. Now I want to offer something that might seem like it contradicts everything I've said, but doesn't. Confucius built an entire philosophy around relationships. For him, human beings only become fully themselves through connection with family, community, and society. The self is not a solitary project. It is shaped, deepened, and completed in relationship with others. Confucius lived in a time of chaos, when people had become selfish. He believed the root of the problem was broken relationships, so he taught something important. Human beings flourish not when they pursue their own pleasure or power, but when they honor their connections to each other. Parent and child, friend and friend, one human being to another. For Confucius, the loner who rejects all connection has missed something essential. We become fully human only in the mirror of another human being. Love, friendship, loyalty, these are not distractions from the good life. They are the good life. Yet here is the crucial detail that connects to everything we have said. Relationship only works when both people show up as themselves. A connection built on masks and social convenience is not genuine relating. It is just two masks talking to each other. We are social creatures, woven into each other whether we choose it or not. The warmth of genuine friendship, the depth of being truly known by another person, the way love teaches you things about yourself that solitude never could, these are not illusions. They are among the most real things available to us. This is not in conflict with everything we've said today. It is the completion of it. The problem has never been connection itself. It is connection that requires you to disappear. Belonging that comes with a price tag of inauthenticity. Relationships built on masks rather than on the actual people wearing them. What Confucius describes, real relational harmony, is only possible between people who show up as themselves. You cannot truly connect with a performance, but only with a person. So the answer is not to become a hermit. The answer is to refuse the mask and then walk toward people. Openly and honestly, without the edited, approved, socially acceptable version of yourself leading the way. Here's what you can take from this. The crowd condemned Socrates and history vindicated him. The person who stands apart from the group is not automatically right, but they are not automatically wrong either. And the reflex to mock, exclude, or diminish the person who doesn't fit in says far more about the fear of the crowd than it does about the loner. The loner who chose solitude is practicing something ancient and valuable, an examined life, free of borrowed values and social performance. The loner who was pushed into solitude by the world's indifference is carrying a quiet resilience that deserves our recognition, not our pity. And perhaps the highest version of all this is someone who has done both, who has sat with themselves long enough to know who they are, and then walked toward others without pretending to be anyone else. Drop the mask. Keep the people who matter. That, I think, is everything.